For the definition of impaired driving, it's any impairment that impairs the ability to operate a conveyance or motor vehicle. When I stop someone roadside and I smell cannabis in the vehicle, or there's admission that they've recently smoked cannabis, that leads me to develop a reasonable suspicion that they have a drug in their body. That gives me the ability to administer a standardized field sobriety test. And from that test, depending on how they perform, if they perform well, they're released roadside. If they perform poorly, then that leads me to the next step, where I've developed reasonable grounds to believe that they're impaired by a drug. And then I can proceed into DRE evaluation, which is a drug recognition evaluation. We take people's blood pressure, their temperature, measure their pupils. There's various medical measurements that we take of a person's body, and that tells us, each drug affects the body differently, so that can kind of steer us in the direction of what type of drug was consumed by the person.
Anyone who provides a sample on a roadside screening device was registered as a warrant will on their first time receive a 3-day suspension, second time a 7-day license suspension, and a third time a 30-day license suspension, which will also require them to have 6 months with ignition interlock on their vehicle. Upon being convicted of having over 80 plus alcohol in your system, impaired driving, or failing to provide a sample, on a first offense you will face a minimum $1,000 fine, a 1-year license suspension, and a 1 year with a ignition interlock. On a second offense, you will face a mandatory 30 days in jail and a 3-year license suspension and 3 years with an ignition interlock. On a third offense, you will face a minimum 120 days in jail, a lifetime license suspension.
We'd also like to remind novice drivers that anyone under the age of 22, or if you have a Class G1 or G2 license, there is zero tolerance for any amount of alcohol or cannabis to be in your system, and it would result in an automatic license suspension if you have any in your system, regardless of impairment.